Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel is simply called Discerning What is True. I'm going to be reading a couple of chapters here from the particular book called The Secret of Light. After all, we are light beings. I'll be reading chapter 12 and 13. Chapter 12 will be dealing with what we call instinct. And it's a few pages long. And then we get into the chapter 13, which is simply called Consciousness, Sleep, and Pain. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you being here and wish you well today. Let's get into reading here of Walter Russell. Again, Walter Russell is a biblical individual years ago, a brilliant man in many ways, philosophically, arts-wise, even was involved in building apartments in New York City, was what we call a very rare man. It did not go along with the conventional science. Everything is a part of what he calls the electrical situation. So very few people see this stuff, you see. But he is a revolutionary compared to the other perspective in science today. So let's get into this reading. Chapter 12, Instinct. Organic matter generates purely from the desire of mind to manifest idea in matter. That cosmic desire to create form produces the desired form. Desire is the motivating force of all creation. Man begins to express the idea of man as a single cell. The whole idea of man is in that single cell. It then unfolds in orderly time and space according to cosmic law. Likewise, the whole idea of all creation is in that single cell. All idea is omnipresent. All idea is omnipresent. Okay? There are no parts of the whole. Each step is on the unfolding of the man idea follows the continual desire for unfolding. Cell memory of purpose is given to each cell as it unfolds. Pattern of idea follows in sequence as desire in God's mind, and desire and the growing idea works together to express the idea in form. Every action of unfolding man is a part of the unfolding of the man-idea as it exists as a whole in God's mind. Any desire of man is, therefore, a two-way extension of the light of that idea from God to man. Whatever God desires to express in man, he will express, for he is man's creator. Whatever man desires, the God in him will create. So here's the key point. This is what people miss. God is already within you, already. You got to find him, you see. This is the whole apparatus, you see. Most people think that God is outside of you, but that's not true. And I remember many years ago, as I explained a couple days ago, that the inner light is within you. You come from him. So there is no point in what we call the saying that many people say that, people will go to hell, and people will go to heaven, which is duality in itself, you see. And so why would God send anybody to hell? Why would God be the author of sin? Because God is not the author of sin, folks. But your preachers tell you that in about a round way. They do. Their whole logic leads to God being the author of sin. I've done that. I've done a video on that already. I've shared that in the early part of this video series I'm sharing. This is what people, you need to stop. You need to stop paying attention to those who espouse this because they're deceiving you. And many of you actually are paying money to listen to these people. which goes completely contrary to what is truly free will and free. Let me continue. Man must, however, co-create with God according to God's universal law. So you're gonna have to work with God here, folks. But God is already within you, you see. If man breaks that law, the law will break him to an equal extent. You see, because his law is genuine and true. The next section is called Life is the Sequence of Experiences. And that's what we experience in our own lives, and the struggles up and down. Our lives are somewhat chaotic, not somewhat, are chaotic in the most part. All the expressions of desire in the unfolding of any idea are a part of the idea. They are experiencing in decisions. All experiences are parts of the unfolding of any idea. Whatever those decisions are, however, they are recorded upon the individual man as his own interpretation of the man idea. Likewise, they are recorded in the whole of the race of man as the sum total of all desires and experiences of the whole man idea. As the idea of anything is one, so also the parts of that idea are one too. So there's no duality here at all. Okay. Instinctively, intercommunication is the next section he speaks of. If it were not for instinct, animal life could not survive or develop. Correct. You ever notice that when you walk out in the woods and there may be, it can also has an instinct that simply is that already, I've had a talk with Phil Langdon many months ago, and we're talking about that he goes to a particular park outside of London. And he says they've gotten associated, that is the deer there, that there is no fear. So their instinct is no longer has a fear of mankind around them. And generally, they are treated well. In other words, the deers are not hunted for food, so to speak. The deer are basically treated, with respect and let them do whatever they want to. And there also simply is that there's no fear. So there's no, but what I'm trying to say simply is that their instincts communicate to them as an animal and how they survive. And that's why deer's major way of apparatus is simply has their ears, and they're enormously fast. You see, whatever it seems to be not in rhythm to them, they split, you see. Instinct causes mechanical actions to take place in all bodies to meet the necessities of existence. Instinct protects animal life from enemies. It tells the proper food to eat, how to build nests, how to take care of its young, how to return home when taking great distances. Did you ever wonder that? You ever wonder how that works out? The salmon goes back to its place where it originally was, where it was actually where it became a small salmon, and it goes back to where its nesting was, up the river, so to speak, as a carrier pigeon does too, and countless other wonderful things that animals do. A salmon, I didn't know I was going to talk about this. A salmon spawns in a certain river, instinctively leaves that river and makes its way to the sea until maturity. At the proper time for its mating and spawning, it then returns over thousands of trackless miles to the very river in which it was born. Now, where does that come from? Do you just think they just sort of just remember that? It has to come from God. Where else could it come from? It is instinct which tells birds to fly south before winter. Instinct tells them the direction of south. Instinct tells them it is warmer in that direction. Instinct likewise governs the migration of seals, the building of the beaver dams, and the weaving of the spider's web. Instinct might be defined as a cell memory record of all actions of a body and of all of the sensation caused by their actions. Without instinct in all animal and vegetable life, their evolution would not be possible. All creation of the Creator are the results of electric wave recordings of the Creator's thought. They are part of the whole idea taken apart and put together bit by bit. They are the result of universal law of cause and effect. None of the creations of the Creator have in them, at their beginning, the power to think. It takes millions of years for complex organisms to recognize the spirit within them sufficiently to think at all. During these long ages, they are guided almost entirely by their instinctive reflexes. Man alone has begun to think, reason, and imagine, create and invent, and then only during the last few thousand years. The next section is called Instinct is God's Control. Instinct is, therefore, God controlled over the actions of his creations. The involuntary actions of the body, and as the heartbeat or the actions of white corpuscles, do not know their purpose in the healing process of the body. But God centers and controls every atom of his creation, and each must fulfill its purpose. So God understood all the purposes of this whole thing. He understood how the creation of man, such and such. Understood how we make involuntary movements, like moving my hands here, such and such, or moving my voice, such and such. These are all done. And I don't have to think about it. It just comes, you see. Instinctive building by God and man. This is why I don't understand why people don't want to know who God is. This is what perplexes me, and why you don't want to know who God is. Because someone else has told you the meaning of who God is, and it's completely detrimental, you see. And the whole idea that some people, I've had comments simply is that, I don't see this being true about God. Not true. They don't say it's true. They state that God must have been a very evil tyrant in the Old Testament. Well, if you're reading it literally, that's what you're going to get. It's not intended for you to look at it literally. That's where people it's a stumbling block. It's a stumbling block for people simply to read Scripture and look at it in a literal interpretation. And that's why you have all these kooky ideas, all these crazy perspectives, as though it makes no sense. Jonah and the whale for 3 days. That doesn't make any sense, does it? And then, you look at these things, they're explaining something deeper. There are layers and layers here in the Scripture that, if you're looking at it literal, you will completely miss it, you see. And that's not, God's grace and good and mercy upon you doesn't send you to hell because you make that mistake. You just come back here, reincarnate. What better way is grace and mercy upon you to allow you to continue that phrase in order to allow you to eventually come to the point of discovering who you really are, you see. And this is what people don't understand. They immediately don't understand because simply they're looking at it literally. And it's nothing to get upset about. It simply is that you're not there. But you could be progressing, you can be learning while you're here, you can do everything. In fact, you've been blessed to be in a country that has far more freedoms in the past. I don't know how long that's going to last, but the point simply is you have that freedom now. Why not use it? Why not use it to your advantage to discover these new things about who you are? You're here to discover who you are. This is the other perplexing thing, is that man himself is, and there's nothing wrong with it. It just explains that his category, he always looks outside of himself in order to find himself in some ways, you see. But he's not really terribly interested in who he is and where he came from, you see. And that's another stumbling block, you see. Anyway, let me get back into this reading here. Instinct building by God and man. A good example of the manner in which God and man work together for creative expression, the familiar knitting woman. Knitting is part of the man idea, which requires a skill. The woman who desires to knit must desire to acquire that skill. Desire must precede all expression of that desire. It's the same thing as I'm talking about this in desire of wanting to know truth. So I go after that, pursuing that with headlong attitude, such and such. That's how this works. If you want to desire to be a good football player, you don't just simply wish it. You go out and practice, and you get learning and start at a very young age to sort of spot and be coached by in the Pee-wee leagues and such, and gradually you become better and better at that position, such and such, That's just how it works, folks, you see. Slowly, she takes one stitch at a time. All of her power, concentration is needed to take these first stitches. Each stitch taken, however, but within it, the desire for taking the next stitch. Very slowly, she interlaces yarns into the pattern required. The cells of her fingers gradually acquire cell memories of their purpose. These cells coordinates with other cells in the body to the development of the whole skill. Gradually, she learns to knit instinctively. Her mind is free from concentration. She may think of other things and converse freely. Her body cells alone will work from the memory of purpose given to them. Instinctive skills are thus imparted to bodies of man by the co-creative efforts of God and man. The pianist teaches his fingers to work instinctively in order to free his mind to think music. God is working with him. Without this moment-to-moment cooperation with God, he could do nothing. God, creator of all things, knows all things and has all power. Man and God are one. Man may know all things and have all power in the extent to which he desires to know all things and have all power. Awareness of the light in man will give him all knowledge and power. Man may not be apart from God at any time, nor can any part of creation be apart from God at any time. And that's the conclusion of chapter 11. I said 11, chapter 12. Here's his quotes from Divine Illiterate. All things come and go from my divine thinking. All things go from very heart of me into my imagined universe. And when they disappear from there I also take them back to very heart of me. Know thou that all creating things are resurrected things, again manifesting life of me through my divided thinking. Man divides his thinking in manifesting me. The body of man sleeps that it may awaken in me to manifest me. The body of man dies that it may be resurrected in me to manifest me. The body of man disappears that it may reappear to manifest me. Man who sleeps or dies or disappears is but man's image, for self of man sleeps not, nor dies, nor disappears, for self of man is me. Again, I say that I am one, and man is one in me when he knows that I am he. Again, that's from the Divine Illiterate. Reading now, chapter 13, Unconsciousness, Sleep, and Pain. There is much confusion regarding the supposedly possible conditions known as, quote, being unconscious, end quote, when we sleep or are anesthetically, we say we are, end quote, unconscious. We cannot be unconscious. We have always been conscious without the slightest awareness of it. Our confusion in this respect lies in mistaking sensation and thinking for consciousness. When we stop thinking, whether asleep or awake, we do not stop knowing, nor do we cease being conscious aware of our being. We but cease to set our knowledge in motion to express idea through the pulsation of thinking. Conscious mind does not sleep. Sleep is merely the negative half of the wave cycle of electrical awareness of sensation. Wakefulness is the positive half. All nature sleeps when the sunlight lessens the ability of all things to manifest light. Sleep is the death half of the life-death cycle. One may say, one may say, quote, I am unaware of this or that, end quote. But one cannot say, quote, I am unconscious, end quote, when one is always conscious. Conscious awareness is knowing. Unawareness means that one does not yet know. Knowledge is within him, which he can know when he desires to know. Sleep and wakefulness are positive-negative wave parts of the wave cycle. just as birth and death are opposite ends of a life cycle. Sleep is but an anesthetic. Sleep can be induced chemically, either to the whole body or any part of it by desensitizing its cells. When the body or parts of it are thus, quote, put to sleep, end quote, they have not been rendered, quote, unconscious, end quote. Their voltage has merely been lowered. The dentist does not refer to a local anesthetic as having produced unconsciousness. He refers to it as a desensitizing condition. But when the surgeon desensitizes the body, it is then supposed to be, quote, unconscious, end quote. We assume that the brain has stopped thinking. The brain does not think. Therefore, it cannot stop doing that which it never does. We assume that bodies cease to be conscious, but consciousness is never in bodies. I'll say that again. But consciousness is never in bodies. A local anesthesia stops pain. Pain is a too intense electric current. The voltage is too great for the nerve wires to stand the strain. They burn out, and the overcharge of burning out causes the pain. When the nerves of the body feel an electric current running through them, the body is aware that something is happening to throw it out of balance. When the body is in balance, it has no sensation. When the body is unbalanced, sensation informs it when and where, otherwise it could not function. Wakefulness and sleep are merely the charging and discharging of the uncountable electric batteries of the body. If these batteries were kept constantly charged, there would be no such alternative conditions as sleep and wakefulness. This planet is carrying us on our uphill journey to our pinnacle. The sun is the generator which charges its batteries. The sun is that generator. But the earth is turning towards and away from its generator continually. As the sun charging light disappears from one edge of the planet realm at evening, everything goes to sleep. Conversely, all things awakening at dawn. The batteries of all things on earth are being forever charged daily and discharged nightly. Now here's some quotes again from his from the Divine Lydia. Quote, I center the moving shaft of my universe, yet I move not, although his power to move springeth from me. I center growing systems and changing cells of growing systems, yet I change not, though their changing patterns spring from me. I center living things which manifest my life, but they live not. I alone live. Growing things are moving things in man's sensing, though they move not in man's knowing. Moving things are changing things in man's sensing, yet they change not in man's knowing. Even though fast moving things of man's sensing moves fast, they simulate the rest while moving, from which they sprang into seemingly motion. And that is from the Divine Lydia, some quotes. And this is the time I begin to say in this particular video I'm sharing with you. We'll get into the next chapter, which is chapter 14, which will be simply called Motion Simulates Rest. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you listening and wish you the best today. You take care, and we'll talk soon.